Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics. Now this time, do something different. Has nothing to do with comics. But I do want to read you something. But first, this is where it's from. I'm planning on reading you The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe from this particular volume right here, which is Edgar Allan Poe illustrated. And then let's see what the big book of knowledge has to say about the Raven. Okay, and The Raven is a narrative poem by American writer Edgar Allan Poe, published in 1845. And it is noted for its musicality, language stylization, and supernatural atmosphere. And Poe claimed that he wrote the poem methodically, intending to create it so that it would appeal to critical and popular tastes. Although it did not bring Poe much financial success, it did make him popular in his own lifetime. Remember, Edgar Allan Poe, American writer, from 1809 to 1849. So he only died 4 years after the publication of this poem. And he died under somewhat mysterious circumstances. And mysterious only being that it's not really known exactly what happened, how he got, why he was where he was, and exactly what he died from. But there were many speculations. And he was, I talked about him before when I talked about the Bernie Wrightson adaptation of his short story, The Black Cat. Poe was one of the first American writers to make his living primarily, or virtually exclusively, from his writing. He was also an editor for some publications too. And he had a very tragic life. Some of which is hinted at in this poem. And he kind of popularized or really invented the short story as a specific medium. And then virtually created what we know as the horror story and the detective stories, detective fiction, with stuff like The Purloined Letter and the Murders in Rue Morgue, which is actually kind of a combination of a horror and detective story. And of course, The Raven, The Pit and the Pendulum, A Cask of Amontillado, and stuff like that for his horror. So, we're going to take a brief look at the artist who illustrated this book. And then we'll get into reading the story. Okay, now you can actually see the cover of this book. This is Edgar Allan Poe, Illustrated Tales from Fall River Press, This particular one was printed in 2018 and is illustrated by Harry Clarke. See. And he's a nice artist. You can see nice end papers, very lushly and lovely illustration for the end papers here. Both sides. Oh, that's the Raven. We'll take a first look at this little illustration right here. And Harry Clarke was from 1889 to 1931. There's a nice color, black and white. Ooh, kind of horrifying stuff there. And then again, let's see the whole image. He was an Irish-born book illustrator and stained glass artist. He was a leading figure in the Irish arts and crafts movement. And he graduated from Dublin Metropolitan School of Art. And his work was heavily influenced by Art Nouveau. Oh, that's kind of horrifying. Art Nouveau and Art Deco movements. His father had been a church decorator, and working with him, he had been exposed to many schools of art. Meanwhile, he attended art school in Dublin, or art schools in Dublin. There we go. And that's just a little introduction to some really cool and bizarre things by Harry Clarke, illustrating Edgar Allan Poe. Okay. And here we go. Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave me token. And the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore. There I whispered, and in echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this and nothing more. Back into chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what threat it is, and this mystery implore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above the chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though the crest be shorn and shone and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl, to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For he cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as nevermore. But the raving sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further then he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the Then the bird said nevermore, startled at the stillness broken by the reply so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to thinking, fancy unto fancy thinking, what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushioned velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gouting o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from the memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff, this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, think of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore. Desolate, yet all undaunted, on the desert land enchanted, on this house my horror haunted. Tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thou soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. And that is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, to round out our October Halloween Fest here on Bizarre Brain Comics. So thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I appreciate all. And even though it's not a comic, remember, comics are art.